With that, I will now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Neguse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to read just two brief excerpts from two different articles in the last 2 weeks. One is from the Star Tribune. Superior National Forest staff deficit worsens. An agency employee in Minnesota who requested anonymity out of fear of retribution said the cuts and fallout have SNF, Superior National Forest staff, in crisis mode. Other forest colleagues are worried that they'll lose their jobs, and some career employees feel pressure to resign or risk losing benefits, the worker added. We were already hanging on by a thread, the person added. Now, Musk, Trump, and DOGE are thinning us even further. This is huge for the boundary waters, recreation, and timber and fire management. It's another article. Headline: There is literally no one. The fallout coming to Lake Tahoe after Forest Service gutted. This is from the San Francisco Gate newspaper. Mr. Chairman, across the country, Forest Service employees, Department of Interior employees, civil servants at the Bureau of Land Management are losing their jobs. They're being purged from the federal government. In many of your districts, as is the case in mine, timber management, wildfire management, wildfire mitigation, watershed protection, all of it put at risk. And while I have great respect for my colleague from Arizona, and we work closely together on a number of different matters, I have to be candid that I am disappointed that this subcommittee has not even entertained the idea of convening on any of the matters that I just described. I understand this is a priority for my Republican colleagues. I understand this bill that you've proposed that directs, I guess, my sense is, it essentially tells the Forest Service and the Department of Interior that they can't impede any efforts of DHS. Of course, it seems like that could be achieved by a phone call, right? I mean, you could call Secretary Burgum at the Department of Interior and say to him, hey, you know, it'd be helpful if you didn't impede any of the efforts of Secretary Noem at the Department of Homeland Security. I'm not really understanding why it requires a federal law and the expenditure of our time here today when in every single one of your districts, Forest Service employees are being fired as we speak. It does not make sense to me. The priorities of this committee, as is the case with the priorities of the majority, are out of step with the facts on the ground. And, Chairman, you know me to not be, I think at least, a particularly partisan person. We have run this, we've worked together for years on this particular subcommittee, considering bipartisan legislation. It's the most productive subcommittee, at least it was, in the United States Congress. Hundreds of bills by members on both sides of the aisle that are largely supported on a unanimous basis. So it pains me to lay bare my fears in this regard, but I have to do that because when I go back home to my district at the end of the week, I can promise you they're not going to ask me about this bill. What they are going to ask me about are the wildfire mitigation projects in the national forests that I have the privilege of representing that are now in jeopardy because the Trump administration has decided to gut the federal workforce. And they will ask why, as the ranking member of the Federal Lands Subcommittee, we haven't taken that up. And I will tell them, well, it's because this week Republicans decided that rather than telling Secretary Burgum to work with the Department of Homeland Security, they'd pass a federal law to force him to do it. That's your prerogative. You choose the agenda here. But make no mistake, I don't think the American people are going to be supportive. And with that, I yield back.